Chirp, chirp.
Breaking all the rules today.
No, wait, how did you get Zika? Because I lived with you for 6 months and I didn't get it.
So, well, I think you get the Zika virus through blood. So, like, if you touch someone's, like, feces, blood, like, I don't think just by, like, talking to them you can't get the Zika virus. Because, mosquitoes. So, yeah.
Courtney, good job not playing with Taylor's feces.
I didn't even clean the apartment that much, so how did I not die?
It must have physically pained you to not clean very
I was
often.
in grad school.
She made me clean.
We clean like once a week, but it's...
I was clean.
I mean, compared to my next roommate who, like, cleaned the bathroom once a week, we were not that clean. And I mean, like, straight up bleach. Everything.
She's like, Taylor, you need to clean the bathroom. And I was like, yes, ma'am.
I mean, she always was like, Ashley, pick up your stuff from the floor, put it on the desk or the chair or something.
Everywhere.
So anyway, the Zika virus, I went to Indonesia.
Oh, that's right.
And yeah, I went on that trip, and my best friend was like, hey, you know what would be a really great idea? If we went to go check out this graveyard in this remote village where they don't bury their dead bodies.
You went there.
And I was like, what the fuck, Teresa? Let's do it. Let's go.
Well,
so we spent like hundreds of dollars. Nobody wanted to take us. They're like, don't do it. Don't go there.
I read about that on your blog. Okay, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah. And we spent like the boat ride. It was like a 10-minute boat ride, cost $100. And our driver just like stood there on the dock and just like waved goodbye to us. And he's like, good luck, guys. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are we doing this? And they take us, past this remote village on the side of this hill, like across the lake from the volcano. And this is like outside of Bali. And we show up at this other dock, and I thought they were going to kill us. And there were just dead bodies everywhere. There's mosquitoes everywhere, and I was getting bit by mosquitoes. And 2 weeks later, when I came back to the States, I went to the hospital because I was dying. I thought I had malaria. So.
No, you just said Zika.
I thought I had malaria, but I got tested. And they're like, you don't have malaria. And I'm like, well, what do I have? And they're like, we don't know, but have a good day. And I'm like, I'm literally... So I went back to me and Courtney's apartment, and I just died for a week. I was just in my room.
Did you go to kill him and hide him?
Of course I did.
Oh, okay.
Why did you go to kill him and hide him?
That's not like the kill him and hide him standard operating procedure.
It's McCullough Hyde. It's the hospital in Oxford.
That's all Courtney ever called was kill him and hide him when she went there for her knee.
Because they're horrible. They're gonna kill you and hide your body.
No, I went to the hospital in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, well, okay. Also standard operating kill him and hide him procedure.
Went back to my mattress on the floor in Courtney's room because I'd already moved out.
Oh my God.
And, it was just a mattress on the floor and like red walls everywhere, like all around me.
Oh yeah, you did have the red room.
I was like hallucinating, and I like one day I thought I was in a Chinese like whorehouse, and human trafficking, just like a fucking random mattress on the floor, red walls, like sweating to death, going in and out of consciousness. Courtney wasn't there, so she would never feed me.
I'm not gonna lie, it was probably the end of grad school, so I was probably just living in my office.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Welcome to the Cult of Domesticity podcast, where two best friends tell each other stories about history, politics, and true crime about 700 miles apart. I'm Courtney.
I'm Ashley.
And today we have our special guest.
Oh, that's me. Taylor.
We're really good at this, you guys.
I'm currently in South Korea. It is 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning.
It's like 8:17 in New Hampshire and Ohio on Saturday. So she's like way ahead of us.
All right. Should we get into dictators and dead bodies?
Yes. So this week's episode, we're going to do a dictator double header.
My favorite.
Since Taylor and I both studied international studies together, at Miami, we thought we would talk about our favorite thing. Also, sorry if I sound horrible. I have an upper respiratory infection, which is why we were talking about Zika virus. So, Taylor, I'm going to let you pick. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. Okay. All right. So, dun dun dun. Chile, South America, Pinochet. Back in 1971. Just kidding.
The time of disco.
All right. Back in the day, I forget which year this was, but the very, very beginning started out with the Navy, the USS Baltimore at the True Balloon Saloon.
Wait,
and
that's a real name?
It's True Blue Saloon, Valparaiso.
Ooh.
Yep. Some, just a bunch of military guys getting in fights at a bar. Americans spitting on pictures of Arturo Prat, pissing off the other, the Chilean military guys.
That seems smart.
And, one thing led to another. 2 American soldiers died. And Chile had to apologize for it. And Benjamin Harrison, who, by the way, went to Miami University of Ohio.
Our prestigious alumni.
There's a hall named after him. Great. It's kind of a creepy hall.
He sent a strong message to Congress. It was like, hey, dude, you fucking killed us. Apologize and give us money. So they did. And that was the first time that Chile ever had to, bow down to the United States. All right. Continuing. Basically, U.S. imperialism. Do you guys have any comments on U.S. imperialism?
Not a fan.
Yeah, not great. Too much of it.
So the U.S. pretty much owns, all of Chile because, I take that back. So Chile owed the United States a lot of money. So, after they got out of Spain's threshold, then they started taking money from the United States and they, repeated the same pattern. And Chile owed $864 million to government agencies in America and $493 million to U.S. private creditors.
It's a lot.
And the copper is one of the biggest money making of Chile. And the United States controlled 80% of the Chilean copper industry. Which copper was 4/5 of all export earnings. So anyway, I want to get into Pinochet. We had a space station in Easter Island. So when do you guys know anything about President Allende?
I know he is a very famous relative who is a writer.
That is true.
I know absolutely nothing.
Okay. So, he was a Marxist and socialist president, and he wanted to kick out, all of the United States influence on Chile, which was a ton.
Can I just say, seems like a great plan to live a long life.
I know. But the funny thing is that Fidel Castro came to Chile to visit Allende, and, he also gave him, a pistol, which I'll get into later, and he warned Allende. He's like, dude, you need to stop provoking the United States. You're going to get yourself killed. This is exactly how the conversation went, I swear. Just kidding.
I hope it is.
So he's like, Allende, dude, come on. And Allende's like, what, man? I'm president. So the U.S. was pouring money into a bunch of media as well, the telephone company, newspaper, Mercurio, which is a really famous newspaper in Chile. So they were just controlling not only the economy, the banks, the media. The United States had its hand on Chile's balls, just grabbing it.
That's a very, very accurate description.
So anyway, Allende was let's kick the United States out. And America was like, fuck you. And then, so the U.S. Export-Import Bank, which provided about $280 million in commercial loans and credits between 1967 and 1970 to Chile, granted not a fucking penny of financing or lending in 1971. And Allende was killed in 1972. I forget which year it was. But anyway, so it was like 1972, 1973,
Mhm.
and the military decided to overthrow him. I think I just jumped right ahead of myself. I just skipped. I was just got so excited.
We do that all the time. You're cool.
So Allende, he was a Marxist socialist. Chile did elect him, and he did want to overthrow or kick out America. And then Russia and other communist countries, he started like taking loans from communist countries. So that was another reason why America was like, dude, let's get this guy out of here. Like, get him out.
I mean, it's basic Cold War mantra. If you're either pro-US or pro-Soviets.
I mean, like, where else was he going to get the money? Like, who else wanted to give Chile, like, loans other than the United States?
Yeah.
Russia and Cuba.
Who else had enough money to give?
Nobody.
The Bank of Hopes and Dreams is gone.
So, 1973, September 11th. September 11th is such an important date in history for many reasons. So, that September 11th, 1973 was the overthrow of Allende. They say he killed himself, but there are recent studies say there's a 300-page document that they found in 2011 after the 2010 earthquake that contains documents, and then along with the new autopsy of Allende, they found out that he was not, like, he did not commit suicide, but he was assassinated with 2 guns, a small pistol, and the AK-47 that
shit.
Fidel Castro gave him. Dun, dun, dun.
What?
And his last words, Trabajadores de mi patria, tengo fe en Chile, su destino, según ustedes sabiendo que mucho más temprano que tarde de nuevo Avenida Grande Alameda, una sociedad mejor, viva Chile, vivan los trabajadores. So, yep, Allende died, so that was cool. Moving on. I'm looking at my notes right now.
Wait, tell us what his last words mean in English, because it's been like 6th grade. I took Spanish, so.
So he's talking to the workers. So he's talking to the workers of Chile. He's like, I have faith, like, in you guys. I have faith in Chile and our destiny. A lot sooner rather than later. Basically, like, I believe that we'll have a better society. Long live Chile and long live the workers. So, I mean, honestly, like, he had great intentions. He had great intentions for Chile. He really meant well to everyone, but he kind of fucked up the economy. There was a lot of, I don't know, he just kind of fucked up. And then he really pissed off America. But he had good intentions about it. But on the other hand, Pinochet, he wanted to build the economy, but then he just fucked up society and killed a bunch of people. But people love him.
I feel like in Latin America it's 50-50.
It is. Yeah. I have people, like, they're like, oh, like, Pinochet, dictator, killed everyone. And then there's, like, you know, the richer people in Chile, they're like, oh, we miss him. Like, he was so great. Like, you know, he did amazing things for the country. So onwards. So he, honestly, like, in my studies of Pinochet, like, you think dictator, like, he killed a bunch of people, like, bad. But I heard what a lot of people were saying about him, like, the good things and how much they liked him. So I was like, I'm going to look into this. Like, and I was, like, searching for good things about him. And I tried looking at, like, the other side of Pinochet. And basically, he said like, in the Pinochet file, he said, I don't know if he said, but Cornbleu said, the author of the Pinochet file, that left extremists continue to attack officers and soldiers. If the army should let this problem get out of hand, the result will be far greater bloodshed than Chile is presently experiencing. And then it also states that Pinochet never wanted the armed forces to really get involved. He wanted them to remain in their traditional roles as professionals and not involve itself in politics. But the fact that the deteriorating economy and political situation forced Pinochet to reluctantly to join in the military intervention. So it was pretty much like, like we can have blood or we can have like a lot of blood. So, I mean, he was still, and it was mostly like Manuel Contreras. So, Manuel Contreras, my favorite person in history. He was basically like the knife behind the scenes. He was the one, like, Pinochet was the face, but Manuel Contreras was the knife, like slashing everyone. He was the head of, the like Chilean CIA. So it was called DINA. It's like the CIA, and it was renamed CNI for Central Nacional de Informaciones. So he was basically head of Chilean CIA between like 1974 and 1977. And then Pinochet ended up changing it to the CNI, and they all kicked Manuel Contreras out of it. And School of the Assassins, you remember hearing about that?
I remember hearing about it because Dr. Ziegler said she wanted to go protest it, but like if you step, like, you can't actually step over the line because, or am I thinking of School of Americas?
It's the same thing. School of the Assassins, School of the Americas.
But basically, it's a school where a bunch of dictators were educated in the US, and people protest it, but if you step over, like, basically the property line, they'll arrest you. Real quick.
Well, so it's at Fort Benning in Georgia. So like it's a military base, so you can't even get on without like a military ID for like official purposes. So yeah, you'll get arrested if you like go in it. But I went into it like, and I'm like, oh, take me to School of the Assassins, and I took a picture in front of it, and I like went running past it one day, and I was like, like what's going on over there? And I really wanted to go in the building, but I didn't want to get arrested. And it changed. It's not the same. So let me explain what it is. So it opened up in Panama at first, after, like, during the Cold War, with, like, all international military, like, officials to train them with torturing methods, anti-insurgency methods to control the population. And it just got a really bad name. And this was all under like Pinochet, and Manuel Contreras went to this school. He was one of them. But it ended up moving to Fort Benning. And let me mention this. It was all paid by U.S. taxpayer money.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, super good. And so the School of the Americas is a school that has run more dictators than any other school in the history of the world. But they did, like, after everything that happened, and DINA, the like CIA of Chile, 1 in 7 members of the command staff graduated from this school.
That seems like a coincidence or not.
I know. But I was like, oh, this school is awful, like, oh, this is so terrible. But I like to look at the good side of things too, because I don't want to be like, I just don't want to judge things too harshly. So this other fun fact, so only 500 of the 60,000 graduates were linked to violence of human rights in the region, which is it's less than 1%. It's like 0.83%. I was like, oh, that's a really low number. It was only 500.
Tagline of School of America. Only 500 graduates are linked to human rights crimes.
Yeah, but they changed everything. Like, they changed the curriculum, they changed the name. They have a new mission. It's to promote democracy, respect human rights, and to learn, like, the knowledge and understanding of U.S. military, like, customs and traditions. So, if you are protesting, you should look into what their new mission is and leave the poor military people alone.
They have enough problems. Do you speak from experience?
They do have enough problems. All right. So quickly moving on. All right. So blah blah blah. Pinochet. Did I mention the Chicago Boys? Operation Condor. Kissinger. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Let me just. I need to finish this up. I could go on for days about this, but
I know you have a thesis on it.
I know. All right, so quickly, the Chicago Boys, they took about like maybe 30 Chileans, brought them to Chicago to study the economy, like economics there in the United States, brought them back to Chile. They did some shit with the economy. It grew. It's called like the Chile Miracle. And
You speak like we actually had to take economics in college.
I did.
Oh, I know.
Got a
You
minor
did
in
the
it.
same program, and it was a struggle.
I know. It was stupid. Ever heard of the gross domestic product? Ugh, gross. GDP. So, like, the Chile Miracle was, a hashtag, no, like, parentheses, like, miracle, not miracle, because the GDP rose 4.2%, which is a lot for GDP. But, unemployment also rose almost like 40%, and they privatized all like social services, education, health system, social services, all that stuff. They opened the market. They really put a huge gap in social equality. So they basically like took all of society, like, put a bomb right in the middle of it, and it just exploded and just like separate it. So now there's just like a ton of poor and a ton of really rich people. So he helps the economy, but he also was just like kind of fucked up society and all that crap. Chicago Boys, blah blah blah, and yeah, and then so Pinochet was like, "Oh, everyone loves me. I did such a good job with the economy. Let's have an election," and he won in the 1980. Well, so the new constitution was put in like September 11th, 1980. And in 1980, they had a election. And I think Pinochet just wanted to be like, oh, do people really like me? And he won. So he's like, okay, great. All right, they do. Good. I can sleep well at night. And then 1988, there was another election. And he's like, fuck. So there's like this huge like no campaign, and the no won by 55.99%. So Pinochet got booted out of there, and that was the end of his dictatorship. And about 50%, I don't know about the percentage, but it's half of Chile pretty much loves Pinochet. The other half is like, what a dickwad. And he did kill a bunch of people, so that's great. Anyway, so that's Pinochet. And then I guess I'm gonna add one more little comment. Leave Chile's natural resources alone. Like the people, those with the most resources end up being the poorest people.
Oh yeah.
Just anyway, I could go on for days.
Oh, we've gone on for days. Let's get to dictator number 2. Our favorite Spanish dictator, Francisco. Whoa, fuck, I touched things. No! Shit. I'm using my tablet. I can't read anything now. I broke everything.
Are we talking about Franco?
Yeah.
My
I
man.
broke everything.
My man. Just kidding. I hate you. Franco.
Oh, I hate that.
Hated women. He suppressed women. He got rid of birth control. He wanted women to like work in the houses. Like, God forbid. Like, seriously? In the house? In the kitchen? Jeez, what kind of man are you?
What, you not cook or something, Taylor?
Let me just tell you about... I'm a terrible cook.
I got a Snapchat on how do I make coffee?
Yeah, I always like text Courtney, and I'm like, Courtney, like how much coffee do I put in the coffee pot? I always...
My answer is always a lot.
That's a dangerous question to ask her.
Okay. Now that I fixed it. Yeah, something popped up and it was like, let's ask you 20 questions about your tablet. I was like, not now!
Yes, now.
So, let's talk about Francisco Franco.
Yay.
Yay.
Wait, can I tell a quick story real quick about Franco?
Go for it.
So, I dated a Spanish guy from Barcelona once. Back in my day. Do you guys remember him?
I remember him.
So I went to Barcelona with him, and he owned this like property in the middle of El Campo. It was like a millions of dollars like valued property, like 20 bedrooms. It had a church in it. It was really old. It was falling apart. It was beautiful though. But like his uncle, well, I guess he owned it, but his uncle took care of it. Or maybe he just told me that, you know, men. So his dad sued Franco for like he tried to take his property. You know, like he was like, "Oh, like this is my country. I'm going to take this land." And my ex's dad was like, no, this is my land. I own this. I'm going to sue you." So I was like, "What? Your dad sued the dictator?" And he's like, "No, he sued the government." And I'm like, "But Franco was the government." And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "Yes." And then his dad got like a million, like millions of, like a million, I don't know, where he got the money and put it in his savings, and it got up to like $1 million or so dollars, not dollars. But yeah, he got a lot of money from Franco, aka the government.
It's impressive.
Anyway, so go on.
Okay, so Franco was born in December 4th, 1892.
Sagittarius?
I don't know. In Galicia.
That sounds right.
And I'm going to say his parents' names just because I love Spanish names because they go on forever. His father was Nicolas Franco y Salgado Arejo, and he was a Spanish Navy man. His mother was Maria del Pilar Bajomere y Pardo de André, who was also upper middle class. He had 2 brothers, Nicholas, who was a naval officer and diplomat, Ramon, who was an aviator and a leftist leading Freemason, because, you know, that's significant to mention. And he had 2 sisters, Maria del Pilar and Maria de la Paz. Maria y Maria.
You know, I'm really glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask you if you had any brothers, for my sake.
You know, in case you're wondering, there could be some Francos around.
Do you have any, like, nephews, maybe?
Little Franco was planning to go into the Navy, but the Spanish-American War actually forced him into the Army instead.
Woo!
I know, mixing it up.
So indecisive.
Your favorite war, Courtney?
In 1907, he entered the Academy in Toledo, and he graduated 3 years later as a lieutenant.
Woo!
Yeah, Taylor, we're going to need your military commentary on hierarchy, because I don't know it.
LT!
I know the name.
You can't spell lost without LT.
He heads off in 1912 with a commission to Morocco because the Spanish had a colony over there and they're fighting the native Moroccans in the Rif War. But this earned him a reputation as a good officer. So, you know, working that chain. Command. The next year, he transferred to the newly formed Regulares, which basically meant he had command over Moroccan troops.
That quickly? Wow.
Yeah, well, it was basically Spanish officers over Moroccan troops, and so they're probably like, don't want to deal with this.
I mean, I guess that does make sense. A lot of LTs in foreign countries during wartime, they do get promoted really quickly. AKA myself.
For the reason why he decided to do this was because he failed to win the hand of his first love, Sofia Serban.
Aww.
Yeah, so he took his revenge.
There's always a girl.
Like, I'm gonna go command more troops in war.
Even dictators can find love.
Apparently not. She jilted him.
Title of the episode, Even Dictators Can Find Love. So, in 1916, he got shot by enemy machine gun fire.
At least he was loved.
So, he was badly wounded in the abdomen, specifically the liver, at the skirmish of El Butz, and possibly lost a testicle. Physicians later concluded that his intestines were spared because he inhaled at the moment he was shot.
Smart. He only needs one testicle.
You know, so now we know Franco took over a country with one nut.
I mean, it may make it harder for him to find love.
Looking for love with one nut.
Maybe that's why he was so suppressive on women.
Probably was his first girlfriend.
Yeah, that explains a lot.
He's so bitter.
You know?
He's like, they're all judging me in my one testicle.
Someone like grabs him by the nuts, and they're like, "Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. Carry on."
I was gonna say he's probably mad at women because his first love said no, and then he got shot. His nut got shot off.
That poor man.
He murdered a lot of people.
Still kind of a monster.
Well, you know, I try to look at the good in everyone.
So out of this, he gets promoted and receives the Cross of Maria Cristina, first class, and he spends the next couple years in the Spanish Foreign Legion as second command and then commander. He does get married in 1924 to Maria del Carmen Pollo y Martinez Valdez.
With one nut.
And guess what? The one nut gets him a daughter in 1927. Another Maria.
Can we talk about how he married someone with the same name as both of his sisters, though? How weird is that?
His daughter's name? Maria del Carmen.
Oh my gosh. Like, that's crazy to me.
Oh, the Marias.
Okay, proceed. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I have to stop and drink a lot so my throat doesn't hurt. Actually, post-honeymoon, he was summoned to Rey Alfonso the 13th, and it shows that he is a monarchical officer, and he got promoted to colonel. Woo, 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 woo.
It shows that it's not really hard to get promoted, and it's easy. If a dictator can find love with one testicle, so can you. And not just you guys, I'm talking to everyone. Our audience.
Thanks, Taylor.
You guys can find love too. Sometime.
I have a dog. What more do I need?
Coffee.
That's a weird direction to take that, Courtney.
I just said, you know what? I was sick, and Schnitzel just, laid by me and tried to lick my eye to make me feel better.
Oh.
It was kind of aggressive.
That's adorable.
It's unconditional love there. Okay. 1926, he became the youngest general in Spain. So, you know.
No pressure.
Yeah. In 1928, Franco was appointed director to the new military academy in Zaragoza, which was basically, they're like, instead of all these separate ones, we're just going to have one.
He should have gone to School of the Americas. Should have.
He should have. It would have been great. And he was there until from 28 to 31. And basically, this just builds a large military base for Franco because he's teaching the next generation of Spanish military officers and all that jazz. Sorry, I gotta blow my nose again.
And all that jazz.
Maybe I should have just had some whiskey with this. It would have numbed all my pain. We're getting to the Second Spanish Republic because the monarchy falls in 1931. You know, they say failure is the best, teacher. Spain has a lot of, republics and empires failing, so they should know the best.
Yeah, but do they have a historian?
The government falls because they had lost their overseas colonies. They had failed to conquer Morocco. There's resentment and nationalist movements, discontent among the military, normal stuff. I mean, but did they have visas to get into Morocco, though? Because that might have helped. Maybe. I don't know. Can you, put in, some, crickets in the background?
I'll see if I can find, the, rim shot drum effect.
That's the one we need for a lot of this, because we have really bad jokes.
I mean, realistically, it would just be all rim shot and no talking if we did it after every bad joke.
So, Franco gets kicked out of being the director of the military academy, but he pissed off the new war minister in his farewell address, because apparently he insulted him, and retaliation was government surveillance. Government surveillance. Continue. They're just following Franco around. Also, at this time, we find out Franco is a believer in contubernio, which basically means he's anti-Jew, Mason, communist, leftist, because he believes they aim to destroy Christians. This is not pertinent at all today. Not at all. Chirp, chirp, chirp. So then we see, his anti-leftist movements, and he's countering the government. He ends up getting moved around in different posts that either demote him, or below his status, or place him on the outside of the good positions. Society? Basically, he was just I don't like these positions. And they're well, suck it up. And his wife was neither do I.
That was pretty good.
So then there were some elections in 1933, and it caused revolutionary communists and anarchists to have a movement, and they held a stronghold in Asturias.
Ooh,
Yes.
Asturias. That's where I
And guess
lived.
who was put in charge of suppressing that movement?
Was it Franco?
Me.
Yes, Taylor, it was you. It was.
She's a witch.
She's a witch.
Burn
Burn her.
Don't tell people,
You
guys.
added yourself. That wasn't us.
Well, Franco successfully tamped that shit down.
Is that the technical term?
Yeah, that's a historical term.
I like it.
And this got him to become Chief of General Staff May 1935. And he's moving up more because in February 1936 he becomes Commander-in-Chief of the Armies of Africa. What armies in Africa Spain has, I don't know. Maybe like 6 people, but that's cool. The next election in 1936 was won by the left, and basically anyone right-leaning in the country was like, oh my gosh, communist dictatorship, oh my god, no, you know, normal.
Chirp, chirp, chirp.
So, back to Franco. He gets sent to be the Canary Islands military commander.
I wonder if he had any
I'm
friends.
leaning toward no. He was probably so focused on that one nut.
It's really
It's just,
lonely
like,
at the
all I
top.
could think about. And his wife was like, we know. I think I killed her. This is Courtney's death marks.
I'm fine.
Drink
Everything
whiskey.
hurts, but I'm fine. So, as Franco's on the Canary Islands, there's a coup forming. And he gets approached by this guy called Emilia Mola. Great name. And basically, Franco's trying to appear indifferent to all this turmoil in Spain. And basically, I equate it to the nice little dog meme where he's sitting and everything's on fire. And he goes, everything is fine. Everything is fine. Nothing to see here.
You mean our life in photo form?
Yes.
Sometimes when shit just hits the fan and you just have so much to do and everything just feels like it's falling apart, you just sit there with your hands in your lap, just calm. Just sit there and just smile.
That was deep.
This has nothing to do with my
Says
life.
the girl in the army.
Right.
Okay, so basically the rebels are getting tired of Franco, so they plan to go ahead con Paquito or sin Paquito. And Paquito was their nickname for Franco. Yeah, so basically they're planning to go ahead with or without him. And when he was forced to choose, he chose the rebels, and he was given the command of the African forces. And the rebellion begins in July. So Franco is on the side of the nationalists, which are more right-leaning, versus the Republicans, who are more left-leaning. So the Spanish Civil War. Okay, let's get to the Spanish Civil War.
All right.
July 18th. Franco, he assumes the leadership of 30,000 soldiers of the Spanish Army of Africa. And basically, a lot of the beginning time was just trying to secure control over the Spanish-Moroccan protectorate, basically their colony. So Franco had to win this for the native and their authorities and get control over the army. Want to guess his method? Anyone?
Killing people?
Correct! He executed about 200 senior officers loyal to the Republic, including one of his own cousins.
He sounds awesome.
Wait, he killed his cousin?
Yeah, so now he has a problem. He has control over Morocco, but he has 30,000 troops that need to get to Spain. How do you get to Spain?
By boat.
Well,
Flying.
yes,
Swimming.
well, the Navy...
Driving. You
Just
can
chuck
drive
him
to
over.
Spain. On the underwater tunnel from America to Spain. Oh, wait, sorry. I wasn't supposed to tell anyone about that.
We don't have clearance for that, Taylor.
Sucks to be you guys. I go to Spain every day.
Hi, Taylor. We're gonna wait for the people with the, like, black... to get you in the black mask and everything. It's
Right.
cool. We'll miss you.
It's nice knowing you.
So the Navy is controlled by the Republicans, and so he has to figure it out, and he asks for help from Benito Mussolini.
Oh, cool. He does have friends.
He does have friends.
Aw.
He gets an offer of unconditional arms and planes, and then in Germany,
Oh no.
Wilhelm Canaris, who is the head of the military intelligence, persuades Hitler to support the nationalists.
Of course he does. I knew we weren't going to get out of this without talking about our friend Adolf. I knew it.
So basically, with his new friends, he gets enough support with air support to break the blockade and deploy some soldiers over to Spain. The best thing is, they all have the Spanish nationalist insignia painted on them, but they're all flown by Italian or German nationalists. So it's like, look, we're Spanish. We don't speak any Spanish.
Awesome.
Yep. So on September 21st, at the town of Maqueda, which is about 80 kilometers from Madrid, Franco orders a detour he frees the garrison at the Alcazar of Toledo, and it was finished by September 27th. So basically, they're sweeping their way through southern Spain. They're about in central Spain now. However, the designated leader of the uprising, General Jose Sanjurjo, died July 20th, 1936 in a plane crash. But who's to lead them? Who will help them in the middle of this civil war?
A lieutenant.
That I know.
He's a general now.
He's always a lieutenant to us.
There's always lieutenants in history.
Lieutenant One Nut.
You guys are terrible people.
We know.
Well, they decide July 24th, so 4 days later, to establish a coordinating junta. Every Latin American country, Spanish-speaking country's favorite thing to establish. So it was initially Mola and 3 other generals and 2 colonels, and Franco was added in early August. But by end of September, it was decided that Franco should be commander-in-chief. But really what secures his position is
his nut. Sorry.
Hitler decided that all of Germany's aid to the nationalists would go to Franco. Thanks, Adolf.
You do realist.
By the 1st of October, Franco was publicly proclaimed as Generalissimo of the National Army and Jefe del Estado, or head of state. It's a hybrid state from 1937 to 48, and it's the National Syndicate Phalange, which is a phalanx in English. It's a fascist political party, and the Carlist monarchist party into one party under his rule. That seems like it's going to go well. So basically, Franco begins depicting himself as defender of Catholic Spain against atheist communism. So that's going to help. And the regime is recognized on February 27th by Britain and France. So, he's basically won.
Was France occupied by that point?
No, because it's 1939.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, was it really France or was it Germany pretending to be France?
So, Madrid falls March 28th, and victory is proclaimed April 1st, 1939, with the last
April Fools!
I think some of the Spaniards wished it was April Fools. The same day, Franco placed his sword upon the altar of a church and in a vow promised that he would never again take up his sword unless Spain itself was threatened by invasion. And you picture the stained glass window interpretation of this. It's beautiful. So, during the Civil War, about 70,000 people were executed, and the victory was followed by thousands of summary executions, about 15,000 to 25,000 people, and imprisonment. There were forced labor camps where they built railways, dried out swamps, digging canals, construction of the Valley of the Fallen monument, normal victory stuff. In 1940, the ordered execution of the president of the Catalan government, Luis Companys, was basically the most prominent notable cases of suppression by Franco. We see that leftists are facing higher death tolls, which is not shocking. And there's guerrilla resistance in the mountainous regions well into the 1950s. So let's get into World War II. I know.
Oh, my favorite.
I know, we've already talked about Hitler and Mussolini. So, in October 1940, Hitler and Franco met in France to discuss Spain's possible entry on the side of the Axis. But Franco demanded too much, including supplies of food and fuel, as well as Spanish control of Gibraltar and French North Africa was a bit much. But he... Could you imagine what he's requesting that Hitler's like, yeah, that's a bit much. But Franco graciously allowed Spanish volunteers to fight for the German army against the USSR, but they couldn't fight against the West because, democracies. Once France fell in June 1940, Spain did adopt a pro-Axis stance because why not then? It seems like the Germans are going to win. But after the war, they switched back once it looked like the Axis was losing. They're like, okay, we're going to be neutral again.
I said, of course they did. What idiot stays on the losing side when it's clear that the losing side is going to lose? If you have the chance to jump ship and you're a garbage country. Not that Spain is a garbage country, but it was run by garbage people at the time.
At this point,
of course,
it's viewed as a garbage
way out.
But the Spanish government, after the end of the war, attempted to destroy all evidence of its cooperation with the Axis powers.
Again, of course they did.
Franco proclaims Spain a monarchy July 26, 1947, but does not designate a monarch. He leaves it vacant until 1969, when he proclaims himself de facto regent for life. So think of him crowning himself, like waving, doing his good, like, Princess Diaries wave.
It's all very Henry VIII.
It's more Napoleon.
I'm punching everyone in the face right now in my mind.
I'm going with Napoleon.
I can see that too. I was thinking when he crowned Anne Boleyn, but I can see Napoleon.
Like Franco's crowning himself?
Yeah. Using the third person and everything. Like, Franco declares Franco monarch of Spain.
I want to take that crown. I'm going to stand there, crown him, turn the crown upside down, and just slam it into his head.
So, he is basically picking up all these privileges of the king. He wore the uniform of the Captain General, a rank reserved for the king, and resided in El Pardo Palace.
Well, at least he's staying in the palace and not his own apartment.
I mean, those palaces in Spain are pretty nice.
Yeah.
A lot of gold. Lots of gold. So, he wasn't a fascist, which shocks a lot of people, but, like, the general consensus is he's not a fascist, because he's not trying to transform Spanish society. He's more of a traditional conservative. But these are, like, the consistent points that he has across his really long rule. Authoritarianism, nationalism, Catholicism, anti-Freemasonry, anti-communism, all the goods. And he promoted Spanish nationalism through a united national identity by suppressing cultural diversity. Like Spanish regions couldn't have their own national identity. They all had to be basically either Castilian Spain or Andalusian Spain. We see language politics coming into this, where Castilian Spanish is promoted, where Catalan, Galician, and Basque are suppressed. Basically, you could speak other dialects at home, but publicly you probably should speak Castilian. You'd be writing in Castilian, all that.
Oh my gosh, that's right. So when I was in Barcelona, like, everyone spoke Catalan, and, like, I just remember they weren't allowed to speak Spanish at all, like, back then. So, like, a lot of the elders, like, they didn't know how to write or, like, read in Spanish. I mean, they could speak Spanish, but, like, they never grew up speaking Spanish.
Yeah. Barcelona is kind of like the prime, and this is why you saw, like, Spain had a lot of nationalist movements because of this suppression. The big one is ETA, which is Basque.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why...
Just bombing and killing everyone.
Yeah. It's not a good thing.
Blowing up trains and stuff.
Yep, that's what happens.
Terrorist group.
Yeah, that's what happens when you suppress a group for so long instead of letting them incorporate themselves.
You should tell my mom that.
So, we see that the Catholic Church is upheld as the established church of the state, and it's regaining a lot of privileges it lost under the Republic. Most significantly, I think, is he set up where country towns and rural areas were patrolled by Guardia Civil, basically military police for civilians, as social control, and larger cities and capitals were controlled by Policia Armada. Basically, he's using the military as a public police. Franco ruled until he died in the 70s, and he had to pick a successor, so he offered the throne to the Habsburg Archduke Otto von Habsburg, because he would believe it would eliminate the question of a Bourbon monarchy succession. However, Archduke Otto declined and said he would be seen as a German ruling Spain, and he couldn't forget being Austrian. So he's like, "Nah, man, I'm good. I like being Austrian." But in 1969, Franco designated Prince Juan Carlos de Bourbon, who he had educated in Spain, with the new title of Prince of Spain, as his heir apparent. So he picked Bourbon, even though he didn't want to, because the only Habsburg said no. And this was actually even controversial because Franco did not want to pick Juan Carlos's father because he felt he was too leftist.
What's wrong with lefties, huh?
Clearly, he doesn't like them.
Shut up.
He only has one nut, so his
Maybe
opinion's
he only
invalid.
has his right nut, guys.
I would explain a lot.
Most
I don't know what,
lefties
but
become
I-
serial killers.
Oh my god. What?
Yeah, it was just a joke. Lefties. Chirp, chirp, chirp.
Okay, so as Franco got older, there were various fractions within Spain that were jockeying for control, and his control begins to deteriorate. Beginning July 19th, 1974, Franco became ill from various health problems, and Juan Carlos took over as acting head of state. Franco got better, took it back, but on October 30th, 1975, Franco fell into a coma and was put on life support. He officially died November 20th, 1975, of heart failure at the age of 82. I think this is really telling of his legacy. Franco was never a popular ruler and rarely tried to mobilize mass support, but after 1947 there was little direct or organized opposition to his rule. And I think that's just because he tried to maintain the country, but he never tried, the country didn't really thrive at all. It's just kind of chugging along. Okay, and that's the life of Francisco Franco.
Wow, that was long. That was deep. That was a lot of history. I feel like, after you finish American history in high school, after a long chapter, and you're just like, fuck.
Everything's horrible. Oh wait, that's just international studies.
This is why we record it.
That's just us after we finished a class in international studies. We'd be like, oh crap, everything's horrible.
I hated history in high school. Absolutely hated it. And then when I got to college, I'm like, let's study international history.
What, you don't like nationalist history? Is that what you're telling me?
I just I hated history, but then I decided to study history.
I think you just hate how college or high school history is taught.
I just wanted to travel the world, and that was the only way I could get credits.
Fair enough.
It's just the system.
Okay, so thank you for listening to the Cult of Domesticity. We are available on iTunes, Google Play, Chorus, and Podbean. If we are not on your preferred app, let us know so we can get on that. Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes to help spread the word.
You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Domestic Podcast and on Instagram at The Cult of Domesticity. To get the episode tip-off, recipe of the week, and additional information about the week's topics. If you'd like to suggest a recipe or topic, you can email us at domesticpodcast@gmail.com.
Long distance high five?
Super long distance high five, 3 ways.
Have fun, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
That was fun.